We are joined once again by Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman to discuss some of the current issues which are taking place in our fine city of Lethbridge. Welcome back to BCN, Mayor.
I'm happy to be here, Hal. Great to chat.
Now let's start off talking about a rumor which is circulating around the Windy City here. A rumor that you'd like to put to bed once and for all is that after you step down as mayor of our city, you would be looking into pursuing the nomination for the NDP for Lethbridge East. Now you say there's no truth to that whatsoever.
There is absolutely no truth to that rumor. I'm not even a member of the NDP party, and I have no interest in pursuing the candidacy in Lethbridge East.
Now, when the municipal election rolls around in October, have you thought about who you may be throwing your support behind? Any of the candidates who've come forward so far?
No, I haven't thought about that, and at this point, I'm neutral.
Now, let's talk about some of the biggest challenges you've faced as mayor of Lethbridge. I mean, we've had the opioid crisis, obviously with COVID-19. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced since you've been mayor in our city?
Well, certainly the social issues, that's not what I intended to have to deal with. I thought I had a very good background in the private sector before becoming mayor. I was active in economic development, Lethbridge, the Chamber of Commerce. I'd served on the Catholic School Board for 18 years. I had past elected experience, if you like, and I thought working with the provincial government and providing a stronger economic base for the city is something I could work on and excel at. And there have been some great projects. The Cavendish investment, acquiring ownership of the airport, building the biggest recreational center in the city's history. We've had some significant successes in those areas, but the social issues have been a significant challenge.
Yeah, you know, you do talk about the successes, but let's talk about some of the challenges. What were some of the challenges that you faced, and maybe some advice you'd give to our next mayor?
Well, certainly with the supervised consumption site, that certainly got a lot of attention. And what we were trying to do there is get all kinds of supports. We talked about the 4 pillars. We wanted more emphasis on education and prevention. We wanted more support for our police in terms of having provincial resources to shut down drug houses. We wanted to have treatment and recovery facilities. So we wanted all those pillars. In addition to the supervised consumption, we thought, well, at least we had one. And if we have regular contact with the people who are suffering from addiction, we could refer them to other services. But we never got the other supports in place, and that was a huge frustration.
Now, were you surprised to hear that Naheed Nenshi, the mayor of Calgary, will not be seeking re-election this fall? You've been in contact with him quite a bit, especially when it comes to EMS dispatch.
Yep. Actually, the mayors get together and talk a lot. We were quite a few of us have been talking about our futures for the last 6 months, and Mayor Nenshi was undecided, and then he's come out a couple of weeks ago and declared his intentions. But I wasn't surprised. The mayor of Edmonton has also declined to run. Myself, so there are quite a few mayors that aren't running, and it can be time for new blood.
Now, what are your thoughts on the recent federal budget? Ottawa announced $2.2 billion going towards municipalities. How will this really impact Lethbridge here?
We're going to get 13 million of that. It's reasonable for a city of our size. They're specifically going to fund things like fiber optic in the industrial park, $5.5 million. We're getting funded for 10 projects, and all those 10 projects will help provide employment and recovery from the COVID pandemic situation.
We're in the industrial area, so that'll probably help us out here as well with the Bridge City News and the Miracle Channel. Now, how is Lethbridge doing with COVID-19 and the battle at this point in time? Council recently said, you know, we're going to extend the face covering bylaw until the end of the year, which is almost kind of redundant, I guess, because we currently have their provincial legislation in place as well. But where do you see us headed over the next month or two? Do you think maybe further restrictions will be put in place here in our city?
We'll have to monitor and see how the situation unfolds. But certainly, it's a concern. Our numbers, we had the highest numbers per 100,000 just a few weeks ago. I was very concerned whenever the numbers went over 200. When they went over 500, that's a real concern. And we're in the high 400s right now, about 470, 480. In my discussions with Alberta Health Services, those numbers are really the tip of the iceberg. The situation everywhere across the province is much worse than the numbers that are being reported. They're only the numbers that have tested positive. In some cases, frequently, when someone in a household tests positive, the others don't go for testing. And that's a real concern. We need to make sure that we have a handle on the situation. I thought we did the right thing in the fall. Last August, when we passed the face covering bylaw, we had one in place here in the month of October and November when the provincial numbers were spiraling. Ours were not at that point. The province didn't put in a face covering bylaw or order, a health order, until December the 7th. So I have no comfort in relying on the province to put in the appropriate orders. I met a couple of weeks ago with our premier and talked about the high numbers in Lethbridge when we had the highest rates in the province, and we didn't get any supports. And if we, again, were in the situation where our numbers were much higher than the province, I'm not confident that we would get the supports that we would need specifically for Lethbridge if that wasn't occurring across the province.
Why do you think our numbers are actually higher than other municipalities of comparable size? Why are they so much higher here in Lethbridge?
Why were they? Because the others have caught up now. But the reasons that have been provided by Alberta Health Services, and I believe them, are that there have been inappropriate social gatherings, inappropriate family gatherings which violate the health orders, and there have been situations in certain faith communities which also violated the health orders, even here in the South. So we need to make sure that everybody's following the health orders. I know it's frustrating. We need to be patient for a little while longer, keep each other safe. It's really the most important thing. Follow the health orders, get the vaccinations, and hopefully we'll get past this. That's the most important thing to do. We can't let these numbers get out of control and put people at risk.
Does the city have any predictions when it comes to the possibility of some of the larger summer events taking place, including Whoop Up Days?
We can't at this time. We have to get past the vaccination stage, and we have to be confident that we've got the situation under control. It would be irresponsible for me to say that Whoop Up Days are going ahead when I have no idea where the numbers are going to go from here today and what level of support and compliance we will get from the community.
With city restaurants and eateries getting hit very hard once again with another round of restrictions, I mean, so many business owners I've talked to, Mayor Spearman, say, you know what, we're dying in. We cannot keep doing this curbside pickup and delivery. It's killing us. How has the response been from the city so far, offering grants to maybe help them set up outdoors for maybe more outdoor dining experiences?
It's been very strong. So this past week, City Council approved citywide patios and parkades. So to support those restaurants as best we can. In my consultations with the restaurants and small businesses, what they've been telling me is they need higher levels of provincial support. So right now it's capped at $20,000. They said it needs to be at least double that for them to survive. And so I think there's a role for the provincial government to play as well. I think they need to provide additional financial supports to our restaurants and small businesses.
And, you know, hopefully we can open up the theaters a little bit more as well. We keep hearing from Len Binning from the Movie Mill here in Lethbridge saying, you know what, we can physically distance maybe every third or fourth seat. People are facing forward with a mask. Why can't we open? He says this is ridiculous, and it's really hurting his business as well. Now, let's talk about the Lethbridge Police Department for just a moment here. They submitted their action plan, Chief Shaheen Medizadeh, to the province as to how to improve transparency and accountability. What are your thoughts on what needs to happen moving forward with our police?
Well, I think it's a solid plan. It involves training. It involves commitment from our police officers. And I agree with the chief. I think the vast majority of our officers are committed. They're professional. But there may need to be some changes, and they have to address some of the cultural issues that have caused the things that have drawn national attention. I think what has to happen is, in the end, our citizens have to have full confidence in our Lethbridge Police Services, and I believe that our new chief is well on the way to achieving that.
Now, the city is going to take about 6 months or so to devise a new monuments policy. Mayor Spearman, can you share a bit about what that is?
Well, I think it's about how we go about creating monuments and what are the things that we celebrate. So we need to involve community consultation, and the way things were done uh, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Society's changed. There are different things we've seen in other communities where statues have been taken down and monuments have been taken down because beliefs have changed, and there were some levels of insensitivity associated with some of those things. And we just have to make sure that we're doing everything that our current society expects of us.
City Council unanimously approved the development of a Community Wellbeing and Safety Task Force. Can you explain what kinds of representatives will be part of this and how this could potentially improve some of our social behavior challenges we've seen over the last few years?
So really, it is asking the community to help us, and so this is going to go beyond the mandate of this council, I believe, but it's going to be a community-based response. So based on the public hearings from a couple of weeks ago, the mustard seed, we saw how that went, and I did ask people who presented and say, well, would you like to be part of the solution? And many of them said yes. So we will include businesses. We will include and invite the people who spoke at the public hearing. And that will involve organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, like the Downtown BRZ. We'll involve faith groups who were also very proactive during the public hearings. And we'll involve members of the Indigenous community. And we want to have a broad cross section. We want to have people there with lived experiences, people who have had addiction and recovered from addiction. So we want to address those social issues that we have in the city. There's many people that are complaining about crime and the issues we've had with drug-related crime, and they think that the solution is just to fund the police for more. And I say that's simply a whack-a-mole philosophy. People who are committing crimes are not doing it out in the open. They're deliberately deceptive so to minimize the chances of getting caught. What we have to do is eliminate the root causes. And the root causes of addiction are things like homelessness, joblessness, people who have no hope. Uh, I would walk around the city in the summertime and ask people why they were addicted, why they were on drugs, and they would say, because my life on drugs is better than my life off of drugs. So we need to make sure that those people have hope, that they are given treatment, and that we provide for that in the city of Lethbridge, and we provide for meaningful daily activity. We need to provide them with skills. So homes, skills, ultimately jobs, we hope, and make them contributing members of society. So that's a big challenge. It won't work for everybody. And there are some people who we know we will never be able to help, but those people need to be in permanent supported housing. And I'm very concerned that those things won't happen. So we'll try a community-based approach, and we'll hopefully have people contributing to that solution. We received $11 million in funding for a supported housing facility 2 years ago, and we haven't started construction yet. So I hope that we can use the available money and start creating solutions in Lethbridge.
So Mayor Spearman, let's talk about the homeless issue here in our city in Lethbridge. I mean, thank God for organizations like Streets Alive, help a lot of the people who are homeless right now, providing food and shelter. We've got the Interfaith Food Bank, we've got the Lethbridge Food Bank, a lot of church groups as well. But what specifically is the city doing to address the issue of homelessness here in Lethbridge?
Well, what we're trying to do is advocate for provincial funding supports, and we have done that successfully in terms of the supported housing money that has been granted. But what we need to do is create unity in the city so that when we're advocating for supports, that there aren't protests when funds are granted. So we need to make sure that the community understands you can't put a recovery facility, for example, right next to the shelter and a supervised consumption site. So people who are in a recovery facility won't recover if they have ready access to supervised consumption. So we need to spread out those services, and we have to be accepting of having them in neighborhoods so people can recover, where they can access services and have some faith in the process.
I was just going to ask you, Mayor Spearman, Let's talk now about some of the sports franchises that have been really hurting during the pandemic and the lockdown, specifically the Lethbridge Hurricanes. What's the city doing to really address the money shortage, the revenue shortage, and to help them succeed right now and into the future?
Well, what we did last year and what we're considering doing this year is basically waiving or minimizing the payments on the use of the NMAX Center. So what we're trying to do is extend the contract and say, okay, this year doesn't count, and when you resume a full season, then you will pay the appropriate rent. But where they have no revenue coming in, we're certainly prepared to be flexible in order to keep the team viable.
Absolutely. Real challenge, not having the fans there and not selling the merchandise as well. And of course, the concession, right? The popcorn and pop and so forth. Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Look forward to speaking to you at the end of May.